Hey everybody, Just Intuitive Angel Healer here with your Grounded. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to another episode of Dancing in the Toxic Shadows, Finding Empowerment and Hope Through the Toxicity. This is a podcast that features an empowered soul swim through the toxic waters of life and how they have found the courage, strength, and blind faith used to obtain the life that they truly want to live, and how they encourage others to take that same leap of faith, no matter if they can only see the first two steps or not. Today we have a special guest, Erin McCullough from Portland, Oregon. Hi, Erin. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I am excited to have you here as well. You are a business mentor, a certified infinite possibilities trainer, which I'm sure you're going to explain a little bit more what that is, and a thought leader and international teacher, and also an entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm excited to hear about your story. I know that you have overcame something that a lot of Americans are starting to feel these days, and it's anxiety. Anxiety, I was born in 81, so anxiety wasn't really talked about. Mental health was really shoved in the back corners because everybody made it a very taboo subject. In the 50s, it was even a more taboo subject, as they treated you like you had an illness and you had to be condoned from all the other people, or locked away from all the rest of society. And thankfully, progression has came over in in the way that we deal with and see anxiety. So I would love to hand it over to you and hear all about your story and your inspiration that you used your anxiety to overcome adversity and inspire others.
So it started quite a while ago. And interestingly enough, it started with a counseling session that I was having with a boyfriend. We were on again, off again, and we were looking to find a professional to help us kind of navigate what was happening. And in that first session, I had a panic attack. And I'd never had one before, and I didn't know what it was. Nobody I knew had ever said anything. Like you said, it's kind of not something that people talk about. A little bit more now, but back then, this is 20 plus years ago. So I'm in the counselor's room, and I have a panic attack. The counselor picks up on it, and she said, you know, the whole, you're an onion and layers, and there's something coming up for you. Would you like to do some individual work? And I agreed to do that. And through that process is how I created the anxiety disorder. And most people would say, you created it. And I say yes, because although I didn't know it, so it's not about blame. I'm not blaming myself for creating this experience. It happened through talking about my trauma over and over and over again. Right. So the work we had decided to do was to start from in utero and come to present day. And that meant sort of unpacking, starting with, what was my mom's state of being while she was pregnant with me, all the way to at the time, I think I was 28 ish. And it was very Pavlovian. I mean, it really got to the point where it was like I would get into the waiting room of the counselor's office and burst into tears before I even started talking. So that sort of thing started to happen. And then I began to have the panic attacks more often. And so while this disorder had me holed up in my home for nearly a year, it started with the narrowing of things, right? So first it was I had a panic attack in that counseling office. Then I began to have them regularly. At the time, I was training for a half marathon, and I was on like a 10-mile run, and I had a panic attack in the middle of it and ended up having to walk 4 miles home because I had anxiety from the moment it happened all the way the 4 miles walking. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm going to pass out on the side of the road and nobody's going to see me and I'm going to die and whatever, all the things, right? And so it started with that, and then more anxiety, more panic attacks. And it just continued to snowball, right? So then I stopped working. At the time, I was a special ed teacher, and I was deathly afraid that I was going to pass out in front of my kids, and I didn't want to add to the trauma they already had. So I thought I better take care of this now. So I stopped working, and then it just, then it just became less and less things, right? I didn't want to go out with friends because I might have a panic attack. And it just grew on itself. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, and I'm trying not to, cry with you right now, because in this, I understand that. I never thought, before I had anxiety, I never thought it could be that bad. And I didn't understand it because I was in the medical field, but I was obviously closed-minded, that I didn't understand how depression and anxiety really take over your life. And anything that I've ever judged, I've learned to stop judging things, because anything I've ever judged has literally, I've had to experience it myself. So I got, at about 27, didn't know what anxiety was, and I got whapped upside the head, and I had a panic attack for a full day, and I got no comfort from anybody, and everybody just told me to get over it. So yeah, I do understand a little bit of anxiety, and it's really scary how it can ball us up in our houses, and people don't understand. They take it as more of an inconvenience than they take it as, this is a real thing. Because what happens is, it doesn't just start out with depression, it starts out with anxiety. If your anxiety goes uncontrolled for so long, that's going to roll into depression, and then that's where it just snowballs into a pit of despair. So, but I like to let people know that, because when I was at my doctor's office telling them, look, I know me very well, and I'm open to anything, but I know that I don't have depression. I have anxiety. I will have depression if my anxiety is not controlled and we don't talk about what's causing me to be anxious. But that's very important. And I'm sure that's very important to stop. I just wish people would stop diagnosing you with depression versus anxiety, because those are two totally different things.
And certainly there's a difference between just, like we like to say, oh, I'm depressed about this thing. It's bigger than that. There's clinical depression, which is a real, chemical imbalance, right? So as I was going through this counseling process, what ended up happening was I was so in the symptoms of anxiety, we weren't able to do any more work. And so my counselor said, listen, I need to refer you to somebody else. I want to refer you to a psychiatrist. And I was like, no way, because I have a degree in psychology. I knew as soon as she said psychiatrist, they were going to try and put me on some pills, and I was not having it. And I'm not saying that that's not a good choice for some people. Certainly, if you are in acute anything, depression, anxiety, whatever, and you need that to get back focused and sort of bring it all together again so that you can move forward, absolutely do that. But there are some healthy natural choices that you can do, and that's actually what she ended up doing, was sending me to a homeopathic psychiatrist, which was, I didn't know anything about homeopathy at the time. I was, a total advocate for Eastern medicine, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it certainly was always for me. It's just a gentler way to nudge your body to do what it wants to do naturally, which is to get into homeostasis, which is the ideal state of being. So I went, she said, keep an open mind. So I went. It was a 3-hour interview, basically a psychology test, which I had taken a bunch, being a psychology major. And then she said, I'm going to tell you what the remedy is that I'm going to give you. I'm going to give it to you, put it under your tongue, let it dissolve, wait for 20 minutes, and then leave. And she left. And I looked at my clock and I went, okay, or my watch, and I went, okay. So I waited. I, did the remedy. I waited the 20 minutes. When I left her office after 20 minutes, my anxiety was, I would say, had lessened by 80%.
Wow.
And I was shocked. And I thought, oh my gosh, I might actually have a life here, because, you're holed up in your home and barely able to get out to do, the groceries and go to your counselor. You're starting to wonder at some point, what is my life going to look like moving forward? Am I ever going to be able to have kids or a relationship for that matter, or, you know, be able to maintain a lifestyle of any sort. I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm actually going to get some of my life back. This is amazing. Which is, you know, one thing that I like to tell your audience is that there is a difference between, so I got the chemistry managed in my body, but it took me another decade to recognize why all that happened and to realize that I was headed for that again. So if you don't get the mental part worked out as well as the chemistry, you will continue to create that over and over again. And it's not a blame thing. I did create that. I did unknowingly. But the reason that I want to talk about it and the reason that I do the work that I do is because I don't want anybody else to have that experience if they can help it. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, you're in the right place. There's something here for you. You wouldn't be here otherwise. So I'm just here to tell you that there is a different life outside of anxiety. This is the work that I do with people because I discovered how it happened, why it happened. And then I developed real strategies that you can use. And we'll talk about some of them hopefully today so that I can provide some value for your audience if they are struggling with anxiety.
Nice. And they definitely are. We I created all of my I created Your Grounded in 2018 simply for the fact of I got my aha moment because my whole life I was taught to just pretend like I was okay. And I did a very good job. I'm a Pisces. I can be an actress to the fullest. You'll never know if anything's wrong with me. And then I hit my spiritual awakening and learned that that's not going to happen anymore. And it's time to stop suppressing all of this. And if I don't, I am going to turn 40 on the 19th. And do I want my, and I'm writing a book right now about this. And do I want to keep reliving all the horrors and the traumas that helped create my anxiety in the first place? Do I want to recreate that for the next 40 years, or do I just want to stand up to it? And that's what I really urge people. When you go on a spiritual awakening, it's not about being cool and I talk to angels and, you know, all that's secondary. The reason why I get up here to tell people about my spiritual awakening is because most people I've found incur these about midlife, about you're around your 40s, somewhere around there, because if you've been pushing down all this negative energy, because I'm a chakra, an energy healer, and sorry, my cat is knocking my stuff down. Quit. Okay. Thank goodness for editing, Jinxie. Okay. I'm a chakra, I'm an energy healer, an angel intuitive, and that's what I've learned is all this disease comes from us pushing down all of our stuff. And I had a client tell me that she didn't like to cry because her head hurt. And I said, girl, your third eye and your crown are so blocked off. That is why, because you've shoved so much in your mind and your brain of whatever bad people that are constantly chattering around in your brain, that if you don't cry and release that, you're going to spontaneously combust at some point. And that's where I got my aha moment. Like, hey, you can't keep holding this in. Doesn't matter if everyone doesn't like you to see you cry, or they call you sensitive, or whatever people have choice words of saying, because other people don't experience it or they don't understand what you're experiencing. Some people want to help you and they don't know how to. And then some people just want to trigger you. I've learned that. And so it's really important for you to learn to be your own advocate and stand up for what you do and don't like. So if you wanted to go to, you don't want to go to the psychiatrist because of the medicine part, and that's very important. Hey, I want to handle my mental health, but I don't want to just take a pill, because that's what they try to do, is give me a pill. At the beginning of my journey, I was 27, spent an hour and a half in there with my doctor. And by the end, she wrote me a script, gave me 6 Ativan, told me it was all in my head. And wrote me a prescription for Lexapro and told me to move about my day. And once the Lexapro kicked in, I would just be fine. And I shared that part of my story because a lot of people, there's people that can go and get great care, and then and then there's people that go in there and they get re-shamed and re-triggered, and that's why some people don't go back. And I've fought that. I was 27 when I first got brave enough to go to the doctor and say, hey, I have a problem. And they said, I don't know, it's part of my karmic lesson, they said, it's all in your head, take this magic pill and you'll get out of your head. And it didn't work. I had a very bad reaction to it. So moral of my story is I always tell people, be your own advocate and don't be so worried about what other people is, because when you get in your anxiety, when you get in your panic attacks, you start worrying about the rest of the world and how they perceive you. It doesn't matter, because they're going to have their own moment, maybe just privately where nobody has to see it, but everybody goes through their own thing. So
Yeah, I think that's super important to make sure that you understand that you are the best knower of your own body and your own decisions, right? So recognize that older generations, still sort of put MDs, medical doctors, on a pedestal. Whatever they say goes. And I would just, advocate that you just listen to your own body, because you know your body better than anybody could possibly know it. Even if you had your doctor your whole life, they don't know, the daily ins and outs. If there's something wrong, get it checked out. Oh, there are alternatives to taking prescription drugs. I like to say, if you're in acute anything, depression, anxiety, whatever, and you do want to do the work and you just aren't able to, then maybe you should go on something, as long as it's not thinking that that is going to change anything. Because the reality is that if you want to be on medication the rest of your life, then that's a choice. If you want to recognize that your chemistry is out of balance and there's some work to be done here, and you need that to get to the work, fantastic. But also know there's alternatives, acupuncture, homeopathy, some of these things that help your body recognize what the norm is for you, what health looks like for you, and go ahead and seek that. Just don't take no for an answer from yourself or a doctor who, maybe obviously doesn't know you as well as you know you. And, and that takes some intuition, but we all kind of know, right? We all know, like, when I eat that, it makes my stomach hurt. When I exercise too hard, then my body hurts, right? We know these things about our bodies. So this is just that same thing. It's like, how can I get help in a way that feels good to me? Yeah. And I think that's super important.
And that's very true. And I'm long-winded, got stories for days, but everybody knows that I got a point to all my stories. And I just know that that's the number one thing that I like to discuss when we get on the topic of anxiety, because everybody, and it seems a little off to other people, but to me, I've been shamed in the doctor's office many, many times. I've been thrown out of doctor's office and I didn't do anything except have a panic attack. And so my biggest thing is to open an eye and let people know who have had a similar experience. Hey, I know what goes on. I was a medical assistant for many years, and I know that if you've went to go to try to get help and you had a similar experience of feeling more terrible going home, just know that I understand, and it's okay, because it's just as important to know how to deal with your anxiety as the point of, if you go somewhere and they're not getting it and you're about to go into a panic attack, don't even just, you can walk away. And I like to let people know that you have a choice. I didn't think I had a choice because I thought society tells me I'm supposed to go do this and do that. And I didn't understand I had a choice until probably a few years ago. And so for many, many years, I was shamed because of that. And it made my anxiety worse, and it made all of it ripple down. So that's why I bring that out. But as a survivor of this and getting your training. You got certified as an infinite possibilities trainer. What kept you going to get past the anxiety, to get healed? Because it's not you're going to get healed in 6 to 8 weeks kind of thing, like like an antibiotic. It's something that if you want to heal, you can't just take a magic pill. You have to take the magic pill and you have to do the magic work, which is standing up to all of your fears that are triggering you to be so worried about things. What got you on this journey to get out there and get certified?
I'll tell you. So I thought, just as most people think, that after, I get over the chemistry is balanced now. I decide, oh my gosh, I have a new lease on life. I'm going to have a much simpler life. This is what I tell myself. I'm going to move to Hawaii. I'm going to live in a small town, and I'm going to work, part time. I'm just going to do everything super simple. The issue with that across the board is that happiness or calm or peace or any of those things are not in a location. They don't exist in Hawaii. You have to bring them. And so, I still had the mental work that I needed, the healing of the traumas that I needed to do. And one thing I want to say, and this is backtracking a little bit, anxiety. So what I discovered, I'll just tell you what I thought was going to happen through the counseling process, which was I was going to have an aha moment that said something about why I was experiencing the anxiety, right? And because it just kept getting more and more and more. And when it finally stopped being more, but was still totally not okay, I'm holed up in my apartment all day, like literally staring off into space. I don't even have the mind to, read or watch TV or do anything. I'm sitting on the floor in my room, just going, and journaling, which again is, adding more to the fuel to that fire. What I discovered was when I got to the pinnacle of the anxiety was that there was nothing on the other side, right? I thought there was going to be some trauma that I uncovered or some major something. And it blew my mind. I went, there's nothing there. Like it was void. There was no story there. There was no massive, something I had hidden away because it was so awful. Like it wasn't there. And so it just, threw me for a loop. I really didn't know what to do with that information. It wasn't until about 10 years later where I finally went, oh, that's because anxiety is an illusion. It's not real. Just like fear, all those things, they're made up, but they feel very real because, the mind body connection is that if I think a thought, then my body creates chemicals to support whatever that thought is. So if you're thinking you're in anxiety, guess what's happening? You're creating hormonal chemicals that are saying, oh, let me support that feeling of anxiety. And so it took me about a decade to start to understand how the brain works and how we even got to that place. And then maybe another decade to actually come up with strategies that I started using for myself and then started to teach others. And through that process is when I met Mike Dooley, he was in The Secret and so there was two other crisis things that happened where I finally came to the light. The first one was about 10 years after I moved to Hawaii, had started a business and it was wildly successful. I had a ton of employees, a lot of clients, had a lot of moving parts, super high stress. And I just was fierce about my integrity. And one morning a client called and she was really upset and she just, up and down, we did everything wrong. And I flipped out and I just went, okay, I'll be right over to fix it. I called my friend, I dropped my daughter off over at her house. And as I backed into her backing into her driveway, I sideswiped the side of my car. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't do any damage to her husband's truck, but the whole side of my van was totaled. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I dropped my daughter off, I left and I came back a couple hours later and she said, She said, how'd it go? And I was like, okay, everything's fine. I said, how'd it go for you? And she said, the girls are fine, but I need to tell you something. And I was like, what's that? She said, when you hit my husband's truck, he was under the truck working on it, and he thought the truck was going to land on him. And I just lost it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I almost killed somebody because I was so caught up in this stress and overwhelm and anxiety over somebody challenging, what an employee did, And at that moment, I said, no more. Like, I've got to find a way to get through this. So I dove into a bunch of self-help books, seminars. I got very involved in a seminar company. I worked for them. And so I felt like I was on the right track. It was sort of like scratching the surface, though, as I know it now. Then I went through a divorce, and that it sent me to my knees. I was just like, I was so shocked by the whole thing that I couldn't even pull on any of the information that I had been teaching, training, learning. And I just, I was lost. And I remember like sitting on the beach, just like it was my birthday. And I just started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And I was supposed to have a birthday party that I did. I had a birthday party that night, and I got to the birthday party, a bunch of friends. We were all going to stay at this house on the beach. And I got there, and I had been sobbing all day long. And my friend walked in, and she's like, are you going to cry all night long? And I was like, oh, I guess I have a choice. I can stop, right? But it was right before I had this amazing experience, which was I had started. Have you heard of this book? It's called A Course in Miracles.
Yes, I love that book.
Yeah.
I'm still it's a book that you need to take your time with and kind of absorb it.
Right. So it has 365 passages, meant to be a journey that you read a passage a day, or however you want to do it. But I think that's how was the idea anyway. And I started on that book, and I was sort of into it, was sort of helping a little bit. And then about a month in, I started having this experience. So every morning I would drop my daughter off at school, and then I would go to the beach, and I would read the passage, and I would just sort of sit with it and decide, what I felt about it. But a month in, I started having a very different experience. I opened the passage, and it was like coming up off the page were these words in bold. It was joy. The path is joy. The answer is joy. And I was just like, after a month of that, I was like, and I have no idea. I haven't gone back since. I stopped looking at the book after that month. And I have no idea if that word even exists in that book. But all I know is that was the experience I had. And I just was like, finally, after like a month, I was like raising my arms up going, I hear you, universe. What are like, how do I do that though? Like, I understand what the message you're telling me, but I have no vehicle for that. And as it worked out, Mike Dooley sent me an email saying that he was doing a seminar like a week later or whatever, or a couple weeks later on another island. So I flew. Had no idea what the seminar was about. Didn't care. I thought anything positive, I'm in. I knew he would be positive. So I went, and as it turned out, it was a day-long seminar on the visualization process that he teaches. And I was so motivated by it that I came home. My business had been for sale for like 8 months, and my broker was like, we really need to discuss maybe lowering the price. I called him up immediately, and I was like, listen, my business is going to sell by the end of the month, just letting you know. There's also going to be a bidding war over it, just letting you know. And he was like, well, we'd all like to think these things are going to happen. I was like, oh no, it's happening. And then I got another email from Mike, and he said, would you like to come and train and teach the seminar that I teach? And I was like, okay. I wasn't really sure, what I was going to do with it, but I went, and as it turned out, I came home and I put on my first seminar, or one of his seminars, and 5 minutes in, everything that I had ever learned through books, seminars, and everything, personal experience, just came. It was just like it just shot into my body. I ditched my notes, and I took these people on like this journey, and it was amazing. And I went, oh, So now my business ended up selling it went into escrow within a week after I had told my broker. I found my purpose by, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach people how to live the life of their dreams, get them to understand that they can choose that and do it intentionally, and show them how to do it. And then I met the love of my life through these random circumstances. He didn't even live in Hawaii, and he lives in Portland, and that's why I moved to Portland. So all of that happened, and it was the craziest thing. It just all came together within like a month, and I was like, whoa, this is what life is about. And now it's like, now that I've had that experience, because people are like, oh, but you had to go through that anxiety. I'm like, that was a gift, right? Because if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be able to tell people, I get it. I understand what it feels like to be completely mired in your anxiety and feel like there's no way out and no solution. And I have solutions, and they work. I use them on clients all the time. And this life is beautiful, and we're meant to be living it as though it is that, in joy all the time.
Yes, and I am a true believer of the law of attraction and divine timing. You hit divine timing because there's a thing, whatever you put out in the universe, good or bad, it's going to come back to you. So if you keep putting out good, you're going to get your good back. And that's what I love about your story, is that you finally got your aha moment. And that's what I try to teach clients. That's my biggest thing, is that everybody my whole life told me this is something I'm just going to deal with. Or if they didn't want to hear me, they told me, basically everybody's told me how it is and how they want me to participate in their life every day. And now I'm starting to get to the point that my whole family has passed. My ex that I was married to for 10 years made a really big divot in my whole family, where they don't really talk to me anymore, because when you marry a narcissist, they can't just leave you. They got to make sure to ruin any kind of, anything that you have good in your life. So I understand you get all that taken away, and you kind of get to this point that you're like, it's okay though, because those are just things and those are people. And I've been I have a really strong connection with Archangel Michael, and I have these random YouTubes pop up on my phone. And this one was about contracts. And I know that and people, again, if you don't understand the divine, it's okay. But this is how they work. An angel is not going to just jump in front of you and say, hi, how are you today, Erin? Let me go ahead and tell you something. No, you got to look more into that. And so they talk to me when I'm having a hard time. And I get messages popped up on my phone. And this one went to a YouTube video about Archangel Michael and contracts. And it was saying that we created all of these contracts. So if you're wondering why you keep running into an unlimited amount of just jerks and negative people and negative situations, well, and this is my thought process, before we were incarnated here, and this is what the video is saying, is that we made these contracts. So at any time that you feel that you are understanding your karmic lessons, like you're like, okay, universe, I get it. Now what do? I got the message. How do I move forward? So you just ask them, hey, angels, Archangel Michael, creator, dissolve my contracts. I have learned my lesson and I can move forward. And that is so empowering, because when you understand that you create your own destiny in your mind, sometimes those memories are just going off of a memory of a memory. And I feel like it's in our cellular level that we keep repeating this memory, and it's almost like we make that memory for what we saw it through our eyes, not always as it truly happened. Because were you looking at that memory in the eyes of anxiety? Were you looking at that memory through the eyes of resentment and hate? How were you looking through that memory? And that changes everything, because I know that I learned this really young, when I would tell my mom things and she would tell me things back, and I'm like, I was like 7, and I know it didn't happen that way. And because my little 7-year-old brain, showed me. But you can tell other people who, if they feel any kind of affliction or any kind of embarrassment about a situation, they'll repeat the same memory that you both have in a whole different line. You're like, it did not happen that way. But that's funny how the brain works and puts different memories. So I love that you're here, that you're teaching people how to overcome their anxiety. And it's more of than just, first it's acceptance. I always tell everyone, healing comes with awareness. Now, you can't get acceptance if you don't know anything's wrong. And half the time, unconsciously, we've been fed the wrong information. So therefore, we think there's something wrong with us. And you go through 10, 20 years of why me, victim mentality. And then you know, if you don't have help. And that's why I want to help people not have to struggle with this for 20, 30 years. I've talked to people that we've had a session, and in 6 months, I've helped them overcome stuff that they've been working on for 20 years. And that's because we're not giving people the freedom to, you know, expand and heal at their own rate, because there's not a time for healing. And it's okay if we create our own anxiety, as long as you know that you're doing it. Then you got to make a conscious thought to, hey, I'm doing it again, I better stop. I have my clients name their egos because it helps you. My ego's name is Jessica because first, well, my name's Jessie, and everybody's called me Jessica my whole life, and it's usually because they're calling me as a little girl term. Anybody who's ever said Jessica. So I've decided my ego would be Jessica. And so when I have that doubt of thought, or, you know, like the Carrie, they're all going to laugh at you. I think, you know what, that is my ego, because they're in your soul side and your intuition side, it's love. It's pure love. And if you're not feeling, if you're having thoughts of anything other than pure love in your head, take note to self that those are not real thoughts. Those are your ego on a speakerphone, on a megaphone, you know, telling you to scare you. Because I always say it's good to have a healthy ego. It helps you from doing things like jumping off bridges, you know. Don't do that. Don't run in front of cars. But when your ego is on overdrive because people have been feeding it fear for so many years, that's why you're like, oh my God, I don't want to go out of my house because I'm going, especially with Corona. People with anxiety are like, I'm going to catch Corona. And, you know, this whole pandemic, this whole thing makes us, our fears overcome. But if we learn to just awareness, stop and tell yourself, you know what? Start asking yourself, why am I thinking these things? And then if you can just kind of go down the rabbit hole of why you started thinking those things in the first place, I feel that it really almost goes to our childhood. Every thought that I've ever went somewhere to when I was a kid, not necessarily with my parents, but it's crazy how our childhoods really mold us to what experiences, you know, what we deal with in our childhood really sets us up for in our adulthood. But
I will tell you that that's absolutely the truth, because a lot of the work that I do with people is on their beliefs. Beliefs structures are put in place from a young age, from like 0 to 5 or 8. And those are ideas that we decide basically are right or wrong, right? So what's right in this world, what's wrong? And those are the filters that we create, or the lens in which we see this life. If you don't believe me, I'll tell you. So, a little story. My boyfriend is super into the Grateful Dead. I sort of knew who they were, but I had no idea they had such a huge following. And now that that's part of my world, because he's in my world, guess what I see everywhere? Grateful Dead stickers, you know, shirts, whatever. That was not in my, like, I was at my parents' place in Seattle like a year and a half ago running, and something caught my eye, and I looked down the street, and it was a van that had a Grateful Dead like huge logo on it for an electric company or whatever. And I went, in the past, that would not have even been in my reality. So I just want people to understand that you think that you know what's right and wrong for you. And then you also think that your right and wrong is the same for everybody. And this is where the dissonance happens. It's between this idea that you know And it sounds ridiculous. Intellectually, you understand that that's not the truth. But I'm telling you, there is a secret world going on for you in this. You have beliefs, they've gone unchallenged. You're running your life from them. You're making all your decisions from these beliefs that you made when you were 0 to 8 years old. That doesn't seem relevant now when I just turned 50. Like, that's not a good
Congratulations.
place to make decisions from anymore. So I'm here to
Exactly.
tell you they exist. When you are in crisis, or you are in reaction to, or you're telling that story over and over again of the wrongdoing, the unfairness, you're being judgmental or whatever, that's those beliefs being poked by somebody else. You had a right and wrong decided about that. Somebody said or did something that didn't agree with those rights or wrongs, and now you're in reaction to it. And so when we can understand these things, you hit on a bunch of things there.
Yeah.
Awareness. Change happens, in my estimation, 3 steps. One is awareness. Well, sometimes we get that awareness because we're in crisis, right? So it's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks. I feel awful. That's crisis. That's one form of awareness. The other awareness is when you recognize that you are having, like you said, patterns of thoughts that are not serving a future you want to create. That's another form of awareness, right? And then the second step is a strategy, right? Some sort of strategy to not, after you've found that you are aware of what the thing is, what am I going to do about it? Sometimes it's just to lessen the experience of it. But other times it's like, let's dismantle this belief right now because it's never going to serve this future that I want to create. And then, third, the most important part and the most difficult is the practice of the new way of being. It's developing a way to be that is different than the other. And it's so difficult because we've been practicing this other way for so long. Like, these beliefs have gone unchallenged for so long. This filter in which we see this world, we've been looking through this lens for so long. Adding in another thing, there's going to be a ton of resistance. But I'll tell you, if you get vigilant about really sitting in where there's change to be made, and I'll tell you, the clue is when you have an emotion, when you have a low level emotion that doesn't feel good, that's your clue that you have a belief that's being poked, and there's work there, there's growth there. That's a gift, the biggest gift you could get. We're here in time and space to have spiritual development. That is why we exist. It's not this BS that we've been handed about amassing things and money and success and all the status. That's all ego BS. We are here to grow as humans spiritually. And some people don't like the word spiritually. So then it's just to grow as self, right? Self development. Um, and that is why we exist. Can you have all the abundance? Of course. That's like bonus. That's on the side. The reality is we're here to understand when we're having low level experiences that that's where we are to be pointed towards instead of what we normally do, which is band-aid it up through alcohol and drugs and, prescription drugs, shopping, sex, gambling, all the things, zoning out on TV, media, all those things. I mean, even just like hanging out with people who don't fit into that future you want to create, still a band-aid, right?
Exactly. It is so true. And that's why it's, you get, there's not a fast track to healing. It's a messy process. You need a good support group when you do it, and you definitely need to find your own tribe. And when I first started my healing process, I thought I had my own tribe. And guess what? Put this out here for you guys, because I'm not that friendless person that nobody liked my whole life. I've had friends, I've had the normal society world, and I've worked at doctor's offices and did all the things that everybody's done. And I've come to understand that when I decided to change and actually be who I really am, guess what? All those people disappeared. It's a true thing. And so all those people that you've been trying your whole life to fit in, I constantly got nagged that I was traveling around selling magazines, and I did that for 6 years. I had my own direct sales crew. I was a manager, but my family just kept telling me, you're not good enough. Your cousins are graduating from colleges in California, and where are you doing? So what did I do? I got off the road to try to impress everyone, and I went to school at 29. I almost got my bachelor's. I'm 30 credits away from having it. And what did it get me? It got me a whole lot of, why did I do, I got a lot of knowledge and I enjoy my journey, but it was like, I did that. And in the end, nobody even showed up to my graduation from college. So I spent all that time trying to impress and fit in with all these people, when I learned, you know what, I'm a lot happier now that I don't have all those people. And that's what the universe does, is sometimes when you're in the football field, and that you're not even, you're on the Raiders football field and you're supposed to be on the Kansas City Chief field, there's the universe is going to have to get you back home. So unfortunately, depending on how much chaos and false things that you've created in your life that weren't true to your journey, that's why we lose everything. That's why I hear everybody hit rock bottom. It's not rock bottom, it's the angels dismantling all the negative stuff that's preventing you, and people that are preventing you from moving forward. So I really learned that in my journey. If you get stuff taken away from you, know that it's not it's not like Bruce Almighty, smite me, smitey, smite. No, it is because you have a lot of junk, kind of like a garage sale, that you need to clean out. And so just tell the universe, I've learned how to say thank you. Even though I don't understand why is this happening to me, I've learned to just say thank you, because I've learned a couple years down the road, you'll figure out why that would happen. You'll never find out right then. But thank you so much today for being our guest. We're about to wrap this up here in a minute. I do want to ask you a question about self-care, though, because that is my biggest thing, because I think self-care is the biggest thing. I didn't do it for so many years, and that is why, I was more like a doll. People wound me up and poked me and watched me go, because I will put on a show for you if you get me mad enough, because that's how I was taught. And now I'm learning through self-care, I'm learning to stop reacting. I'm learning to stop being a hot mess and have, people have that fun to chat about me. And I'm learning to take that 5 extra seconds before I respond. And if I can't say anything nice, I just don't say anything at all, because, whatever you put out into this universe is a thing, and thoughts are things. And I always tell people that. So what would you give advice and a little bit about your self-care routine to help you stay on track and balanced?
Every day I start my morning with meditation and visualization. It just doesn't ever feel right if I don't anymore. It's just part of the thing. And what I practice, and hopefully maybe your audience, if they're interested, is the idea of, we talked about gratitude. Gratitude is the ultimate in receivership. And so when I'm in my visualization, I'm really feeling all the feels. And the visualization is about the day in the life of everything I ever wanted. And that's just not, I mean, that's material things, but it's also like, relationships and feelings. And it's really mostly about the emotion. Like, how can I get into an emotional state of joy? That's where I actually discovered my joy, was through that visualization process. And so I rediscover it every morning. So I think we can all agree that'd be a good place to start your day. So it starts with that. Throughout the day, I intentionally breathe. I make a point of recognizing that while my, nervous system will provide, regular breathing for me, if I intentionally breathe, then I can be present moment. And being in the present moment means that I get to experience peace of mind and calm. And I find meaning in there and stillness. And then for me, I try to get out so I go for a walk every morning and evening with the dog as my excuse to get out. But then even other times, I love to hike around trees. Doesn't have to be anything big or anything, but just being around nature. I never leave a hike going, man, I wish I hadn't done that. That seemed like a waste of time. So, and I think most people feel that way. Nature is, I mean, what a huge gift. And here in Portland, there's trees everywhere. So I get to just go out and I'm like the crazy lady that's out there talking to the trees, just going like, I see you. Thank you. Thanks for being in here. Thanks for cleaning the air. I see you. And I sort of go about my day just saying that to people and animals and and trees and flowers. Yeah, I love flowers.
That's
Saying,
okay,
I
because
see
I'm
you.
more like Superstar, where she just goes and hugs them, but I don't make out with them like she does. But she's always at the beginning of the movie Superstar, she's over there hugging the tree, and like it's her boyfriend. It's the funniest thing. Y'all know what I'm talking about if you've seen that movie. But where do you have any specials or anything that you would like to offer our audience today for what you do, and how can they get in touch with you as well?
Yeah, so I think the best way to get in touch with me is through my Instagram handle, which is Erin, Erin, M as in Mary, ACLLC. Um, I post a ton of content videos. They can be a little lengthy, but there's always like a nugget there. And my URL for my website is there, unless I'm promoting a class, which then the funnel for the class to get into register or learn more about it is there. I always like to, when I'm on podcasts, I like to give anybody who's interested just a discovery chat. It's not a sales call. I am not interested in hard selling anybody. But what I do love is creating value for people. And, people will call me and just say, you have a half an hour to spend with me and sort of get me on the right track. And I love to do that. So if that interests you, please DM me through Instagram or through my website.
Nice. And all of your links will be here at the bottom as well. So
Awesome.
thank you so much for being here today. What guidance would you give fellow beautiful souls out there that are doing a similar toxic dance with anxiety? And what words of wisdom would you give and guidance would you give them to help break up with their partner of anxiety and pick a better one?
What I want people to understand is that they are not their thoughts and they are not their emotions. And the reason that I know that is because you can think a thought and know what that thought is. So, who is that can think the thought and know what it is? And you can have an emotion and name that emotion. So, who is that can see, oh, I'm angry right now, I'm sad, I'm anxious? That's who you truly are. That's the deepest part of you. People go on this search of who am I? Who you are, you alluded to before, is all loving, all kindness, all knowing. The things I'm saying, if they resonate with you, I'm not new to saying them. It's not, me, it's you. We all know this stuff on an innate, very deep level. We were just conditioned to not continue this way. And I'm here to move us in the other direction, because this idea that we're going to find happiness through all these inanimate objects is absolutely ludicrous. There is no happiness there. It's brief. And that's, one thing we didn't talk about is the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is based on an external event. And it's, I got a new car, yippee, that's great for an hour, a day, a month, whatever. But then it's back to the old, grind, as they say. And so I just want to tell you that there is an internal experience of joy that can be created. It is your birthright. It exists within you right now. Go and seek it out. If it's not me, there are plenty of practitioners that can help you on that path. But if you waste another day of this precious, beautiful life not being in joy, I just want to encourage you not to do that. It just doesn't, it's not important. The things that we think are this success and the money and all that, love all those things. but that's not the thing.
Yes, I can totally agree with you. As a girl who has had, it's funny, I've been around people with money, I've had my own things, and then I've had nothing. And I've had no food at one point, but you know what? It doesn't matter because in all of those moments, good or bad, I always remember a certain individual or a certain something like me or just someone that the angels put around me to help me, no matter what. So love will never go away. It's not something that you hold in your hand, and happiness is not, or joy is not something that you hold in your hand. So I can totally believe if you can understand that gratitude, I'm a big practicer of gratitude. Be grateful for what you have right now, and those things will get bigger. But if you're not grateful for what you have now, they always say, if you want a better life, stop waiting, say, I'm going to have a better life next year. And you got to start visualizing how would you act? And I told somebody this one time, I said, you're upset about that person and they're judging you and they don't want you on your team. You don't have enough money, whatever it is. Now, would you still be arguing with this person if you had $100,000 in your bank right now? And would you even care? Would you even care to have this whole argument that got you so frustrated and down on yourself because their egos said, I'm better than you? But if you had all that money, would you be begging them to be a part of their team so you can get exposure? No, because you already have your success. So when you start understanding that you already have the success, you just need to like shine it up and amplify it and stop looking to everyone else to give it to you. You can experience joy every single day because it's not money. Money is energy. Money is a piece of paper. And I've really learned this because I've never been interested in money. Yeah, sure. I like money because it makes it where I can eat and not have to be out in the snow here in Colorado. But money is not like when you start trying to tempt me with cars and things, I'm just like, I've told people, no, thank you. And they've sat there with their thing going, why didn't it work? Because you got the wrong target, because I don't care about money. You're not going to make me in that trap because, you know, it's, you can have all those things. Spirit, you have all, I tell people you can get your abundance. It's like an Amazon truck coming, but the more you think that it's out of reach, the more roadblocks and tickets that you're getting that poor Amazon driver, and you'll never get your abundance. So, but thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I really enjoyed your spirit being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's really important to have these platforms. We need to have these conversations more often. It helps people along their route so that they can understand, what is this all about and how can we begin to enjoy our lives?
That is so true. And that's exactly why I have this platform, and to bring beautiful guests like yourself so you can help
Oh,
enlighten
thanks.
lighten the world out here, that you're not alone. And healing is individual, and whatever you're dealing with, whatever disease, whatever ailment, whatever chaos you're dealing with, always know that everything's temporary. And if you don't like something, simply stop doing it and do the other thing and you'll feel a lot better. So, but well, there you have it, beautiful souls. Another powerful guest that has learned to survive their swim in the toxic waters and break up with their toxic dance partner, fear. If you need help trying to find a new dance partner, please reach out to myself or my guest, Erin, on the show today, and let us show you how a single 4-letter word can change your mindset. And that single 4-letter word is love. With love, all things are possible. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dancing in the Toxic Shadows. Until we meet again, this is Jess, Intuitive Angel Healer, sending healing angel vibes. Love and light, everybody. Take care.